So that's domestic policy. Pretty good overall, I would say, for the whole government. Probably 7 or 8 out of 10 on domestic policy. But for Blair personally, perhaps 3 or 4 out of 10 on domestic policy. And then let's come into foreign affairs. I mean, who would have thought that this man would have spent so much of his time on foreign affairs? Well, he always had a deep anxiety about rogue states, about weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, nuclear weapons. This was part of his very early thinking. But it's surprising, isn't it, that so much of his time has been spent in that area. Much more of his time was going to be spent on Europe. And he believed that in Europe, he was one of this new generation, the first Prime Minister not to be affected by the stale, tired, rigid thinking of those politicians who'd been brought up either during the Second World War or influenced by the Second World War kind of thinking. He thought that he was uniquely able to come in and reach a new settlement because he's Tony Blair, and he can do it, and reach a new and mature and sensible relationship between Britain and the European Union, and of course take Britain into the European single currency. And yet now what's interesting is that he defines his European achievement essentially around 2 negatives. The fact that he didn't take Britain into the single currency, and he hasn't taken this into the Constitution. Apart from that, enlargement would be an achievement of which he's proud, enlarging the EU, but he hasn't achieved anything like what he said about taking Britain into the European Union and making us the heart of the debate of a vital new Europe, just like he hasn't achieved what he wanted to achieve with the Constitution about making this a modern, vibrant democracy. And what else about foreign policy? Well, Iraq. And Kosovo before it. I think if you look at him, you can see that Tony Blair has built up his achievements one after the other. He's realised he can do something, and then he's tried to take on a bigger target. And there was a kind of tragic inevitability about Iraq, and you can read it all the way back to that seminal speech that he gave in Chicago in April 1999, when he outlined his doctrine of the international community, which said that it justified the intervention in the internal affairs of other states for humanitarian reasons under certain set conditions. And that was the philosophical underpinning. He got there way before Bush, the philosophical underpinning for the invasion of Iraq. So, Northern Ireland, if you just take that, Northern Ireland, perhaps his greatest achievement of all, something he stuck at doggedly all the way through. I certainly admire him, but again in Northern Ireland he built very much on the work of John Major, who is the unsung hero of the progress that's taking place in Northern Ireland.